Hi, I'm Denise. Thank you for watching my video. Today I'm going to be talking about the O sound in English. This is a sound made with the letter L. This is a two-part lesson. So in this first part, the first video, I will be talking about how to make the O sound in English. And I will be talking about some variations in making this sound. And I will talk about the dark L and light L. We'll talk about how to make those and what the difference is between those sounds. In part 2, I will give you a lot of words to practice with me containing this sound. Okay, words with O in the beginning of the word, the middle of the word, and the end of the word. I will also give you some words with silent L to practice. So the letter is silent. We don't have the O sound, just the letter. I will compare similar words or minimal pairs with you. I will compare words without O and with it, with O. Words with O and This is words made with the R letter. And I will compare words with O and N. After that, I will give you a short quiz, then a few sentences to practice with me, and then I'll give a very special thank you to some translators. So this is part 1. Let's begin by talking about how to make the O sound. There are many ways to make the O sound, but the most common way that Americans use to make this sound is to put the tip of their tongue, the tip is the very end, put the tip of the tongue on the hard ridge behind their upper front teeth. So I put the tip or end of my tongue up on that ridge just behind my teeth, my upper teeth. My lips are slightly open, and then I push air out over the sides of my tongue. And what that means is, if I'm pushing air out over the sides, it means that the sides of my tongue are not pushing hard against my teeth. They can touch my teeth, but they can't push because I have to let the air out. This is a voiced sound, so my vocal cords are vibrating. So tongue tip on the ridge, lips open, push air out over the side. Oh, 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 and it's voiced. Oh. So I can feel my vocal cords vibrating. That is the most common way, the most basic way, but there are many variations in making this sound. At times, we can put our tongue tip against our teeth, not against the ridge, but against the teeth. Sometimes we put the tongue tip between the teeth and the ridge. Sometimes we put the blade of the tongue, and the blade is the part just behind the tip. If this is my tongue, this is the tip, the very end. The blade is just behind the tip, like the flat part. So sometimes we put the blade of the tongue on that hard ridge, not the tip, but just the blade. And at times, we even put the center of our tongue on the hard palate. That's the part that goes up. It's behind the ridge. But the most common, the most usual way we make it is with the tip of the tongue on the ridge behind our teeth. Okay? I've written these up here on the board and also a picture, which is not very good, so I'd like to go over that with you. So this is the basic way, tongue tip on the ridge behind our upper teeth. Our lips are slightly open. We push air over the sides of the tongue, and it's a voiced sound. These are the variations, some variations down below. There are others, and in your language, you may make the O sound with one of these variations, or you may even have a different way to make the O sound. But these are some that Americans use. These three things, lips open, push air, and voiced, are the same for all of them. The difference is in the tongue, where the tongue tip is, or the tongue position. So one, I said the tongue tip can be on the teeth at times. We do this when we have O, or actually the letter L, before TH, okay? Here are two examples in the word health and sell the car. Now, in these two examples, in this one I have the letter L before TH. To make the TH sound, I have to put my tongue between my teeth. And so it's just easier for us to also make the L with our tongue in about that position. So health, health, health. For the L, I'm putting my tongue on my teeth. So that's what I have here, tongue tip on teeth. Health. When L is followed by other letters and sounds, though, we don't do this. Here, I have two separate words. One word ends in L, sell. The next word begins with TH, the. In this case, because the L is followed by TH, I will also, most people will probably put the tongue on the teeth for this L, okay? Sell the car, sell the car. If I say sell by itself, without this word, I'll put my tongue tip on the ridge behind my teeth. But if I say sell the car, I can very easily, and usually do, put the tongue tip on the teeth because of the TH, okay? So that's one way, one instance when we put the tongue tip on the teeth. We don't do that all the time. The tongue tip between the teeth and the ridge, this, I guess, depends on the word. Some people do that, some people don't do that. Okay, it's very close to tongue tip on the ridge. The tongue blade on the ridge, this one too, some people just alternate depending on the word, or maybe depending on that particular person's style, they might alternate that, the blade, instead of the tip on the ridge. But still, this is the most common. Then I put center of tongue on hard palate. That is not as common. But if this is my tongue, the center raises a bit and up to the hard palate, and that makes the O sound. We only do that in front of the Y sound. I have an example here. In this word value, this letter U is actually making two sounds. It's making a Y plus an U sound. Sorry. U, like the word you. So this is value. When I say it slowly, I would put the tip of my tongue up on the ridge to make this L, value. However, if I'm just speaking normally in natural speech, I mostly would not do it this way. Instead, I put my tongue, the center of my tongue, on the hard palate. And I do that in preparation for the Y sound that follows the L. So it sounds something like this. Can't do it slowly. Value, value. So I'm raising the center of my tongue. Value. However, if that's difficult, you can always go back to this, to the basic way, for any of these, okay? Value. People will understand you. But I've just tried to put a few variations up here. I know some students have told me that they are confused about this sound. They're not sure where to put their teeth. Different people tell them different things. That is because there are variations. But again, this is the most basic way, okay? So if you use this, you'll be understood. If you use these, you will also be understood. But this, of course, is the most common. I've drawn a picture up here just to kind of show you a little bit. So the most common way, this is supposed to be the mouth. This is the upper lip, the upper teeth. This is the gum ridge, or the alveolar ridge. This is the hard palate up here. This is the bottom lip. You can see the chin here. The bottom lip, the bottom teeth, and this is the tongue. So the most common way for Americans to make this O sound is to put the tip of the tongue right here on the alveolar ridge. However, I did say there are variations, so sometimes we might put the tip on the teeth, sometimes between the teeth and the ridge, just kind of in the corner there, and occasionally, with a few words, we might raise the center of the tongue towards the hard palate up here. Okay, but that's not as common. One position I suggest that you do not use, though, is to put the tip of the tongue or the blade of the tongue on the hard palate. Don't put the tip way up here, okay? Anywhere along here is fine. The alveolar ridge, the teeth, or between those two, that's fine. But if you curl the tongue and put it up here, you get a different sounding ul, and that can be hard for many Americans to understand. So I suggest you do not put the tip, oops, or, sorry, this is supposed to be the blade. I suggest that you do not put the tip or the blade of your tongue, so do not put the very end or the front of it here. Do not put those on the hard palate. When you do that, what happens is, if this is the top of my mouth and this is my tongue, the tongue is curled back a little bit too much, and the L does sound different, okay? So anywhere, let's pretend these are my teeth hanging down, okay? On the teeth, alveolar ridge, anywhere in this front part of the mouth, anywhere along here is okay. But curled back will probably make that L difficult for an American to understand, okay? So I suggest you do not do it that way. Don't curl your tongue so far back, okay? Some students have asked me about the difference between the dark L and the light L. The difference is in the position of the back of the tongue. I previously said that to make an ul sound, we raise the tip of our tongue and we touch the ridge behind our teeth. Well, in a dark L, remember this is my tongue, in a dark L, yes, we're raising the tip, but we're also raising the back of the tongue. So we're doing both. In a light L, the back of the tongue is low in the mouth. So the difference between dark and light is in the position of the back of the tongue. And I've written those things up here. So dark L versus light L, the difference is position of the back of the tongue. In the dark L, the back of the tongue is raised. In the light L, the back of the tongue is low. But the tongue tip touches the ridge for both. Or, as I was talking about earlier, I said that sometimes the tongue tip is on the teeth or between the teeth and the ridge. That's okay. So I put tongue tip touches ridge, while the tongue tip touches up here somewhere. That part is the same. The difference is in the position of the back of the tongue. So for the light L, here the tongue is low, the back of the tongue is low in the mouth. But for the dark L, the back of the tongue raises. And that's the difference. Linguists don't all agree about how much Americans use these two different positions. Some of them, though, say that most Americans use the dark L almost all the time for any word. Then there are other linguists that say that's not true. When the light L is used, it is used before front vowels. And the front vowels are E, I, A, and A. So when the letter L, or the sound ul, is used before one of these vowel sounds in words, then some people who use the light L would make it in that case. And here's one example in the word lake. So the letter L is before the A vowel sound. The dark L is usually used in the middle of words before an unstressed vowel, as in the word telephone. It's also used before a back vowel, and the back vowels are oo, o, and aw. Here's an example in the word look. So these two letters O here make the vowel sound. So when the L comes before that, we normally get a dark L, look. So I'm raising the back of my tongue. And at the end of words, we get the dark L, as in the word all. And also when the L is syllabic. That means, it's usually at the end of a word, that means that the letter L is making a syllable without a vowel sound. If you want more information about syllabic consonants, I will have that in another video, so you can check my other video. But these are cases when the light L is normally used and the dark L is normally used. But remember what I said earlier, that some linguists say that most Americans use the dark L regardless of where it is in the word. But there are others that have a definite light and a definite dark. I wouldn't worry too much about the difference between the light L and the dark L. If you are making an O with the tip or blade of your tongue in any one of these positions, the alveolar ridge, the teeth, or the space between there, if you've got your tongue there, then you should be understood by an American listener. If, however, you are curling your tongue back so that the tip or blade is touching up here, then you may be misunderstood. That could be a problem. Remember when I said earlier, don't curl your tongue too far back, okay? So if you're curling your tongue back far, you may have a problem. If you're not, if you're keeping your tongue up in the front, in this area, you should not have a problem. So I don't think it is a big thing to worry about between the light and the dark L. However, many languages do have only the light L. They don't have the dark L. So if you want to sound more like an American or a North American speaker, then yes, you can practice the dark L. But I don't think it's a big deal, okay? Other teachers may not agree with me as much, but for me, I don't think it's a big deal. As I said, as long as your tongue is somewhere in this area, you should be okay. There are no minimal pairs with the light L and dark L in English. What I mean by that is if you say a word such as lead, and this happens to have a front vowel, the E vowel sound, so if you happen to say this word with a light L, you will be understood. But also, if you say this word with a dark L, you will be understood. So there's no difference in English between these two words. Lead and lead, they mean the same thing to an American listener. So that is not a minimal pair. Those are the same whether you use a light or a dark L. But if you change that O to a different sound, such as in the word need, or is in the word read, you get very different words. So these two are minimal pairs, lead, need. That means that they differ in only one sound. They differ in the O and the N, and they are different words. Or lead and read. This is also a minimal pair. These are different words. So if you make O or you will get different words. However, if you make light L or dark L, you don't get different words. It's the same word. So that's why I said, to me personally, it's not a big deal. But if you want to learn how to make the dark L and sound a little bit more American, because perhaps in your language you only have the light L, well, you can do these things, okay? A few steps that you can use to practice. First of all, I would say make the oo vowel sound. Oo happens to be a back vowel. And the reason I want you to do that is just so that you can, it's a back vowel, so you can feel where the tongue is when you raise the back of your tongue. Otherwise, just talking about the L and seeing my picture, it might be difficult to really feel what the tongue is supposed to do. If you make this sound, ooh, ooh, you can feel the back of your tongue and where it is, okay? It's being raised in your mouth. Ooh, ooh. So you're only doing that so you can feel where the back of your tongue is, or the back of the tongue rise, okay? Then, with the back of the tongue in that position, I want you to take the tip of the tongue and put it on the alveolar ridge, on the ridge behind your upper teeth. Put tongue tip on ridge, okay? So then I want you to put the tongue up here. So you're making ooh, and you're feeling where the back of the tongue is, but then you're going to put the tip of the tongue on the ridge. Then I want you to unround your lips. They're rounded because you were making ooh. Watch me make this sound. Ooh. Okay, my lips are rounded, but I don't want them rounded for the O sound. Okay? You only did that so you can feel the back of the tongue. So in this step, you want to unround those lips. So I started with ooh, then I put the tip of my tongue up, ooh, but I don't want those lips rounded. Unround the lips, and then say oh. Okay? Let's try it. It's much quicker when I don't explain everything. So, ooh, tip up, unround, oh, ooh, tip, unround, oh. It's hard for me to talk and do that at the same time, okay? But, as I said, I don't think it's a big deal whether you make a light L or a dark L. Some people might think that though, so if you, and maybe you do, so if you'd like to practice the dark L, you can do these steps, okay? Alrighty, good luck. Let's move on to the next section. I think I'll stop this video here so that it doesn't become too long, but I'll immediately make another one with words that you can practice with me, okay? So please definitely watch the next video too, so you can practice some words and some sentences with the O sound, okay? And before I stop, I want to say a really sincere thank you to the people that have translated some of my videos. I really, really appreciate it. I can't thank you individually because YouTube doesn't give me your name or contact information, so I can't give you a personal thank you. But I really want to thank everybody. Thank you so, so much for translating my videos. I can't do it myself. I don't know all your different languages. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And please stay tuned. Please go ahead and watch my next video so you can practice the O sound with me. And please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. Bye.